Welcome back to Fan Talk. I'm David.
I'm Simon.
And today we're going to be talking a little bit about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Quentin Tarantino's new film.
Ninth movie, if you go by his count, which does include Kill Bill as one movie.
Yeah.
It came out last weekend. I went to a packed theater on this one. I was like first row. The only seats left, so I'm like, staring up at it the entire time.
When I went, it was actually today, and it was still incredibly busy. I went to a matinee, and there was still... I wouldn't say it was full, but there wasn't a whole lot of empty seats in the place. So it was a good time.
Well, it's opening up as his biggest movie yet, outpacing even Inglourious Basterds. Was it 9-10 years ago? Opened with the $40 million to Inglourious Basterds, previous $38 million. So it's on track to do pretty well, and I'm happy for him because it deserves it. It's got good critical acclaim, the good audience reviews, and I'm actually kind of tempted to go back and see it again because you go and see it and it feels like every shot, every frame, every scene, you're like, yeah, this is Tarantino.
This is so Tarantino. But on the other note, there's a lot of things that were a lot different in this film. I mean, the language was way toned down compared to his other films.
The violence, except for the last final, we'll get to that.
Yeah, it was toned down.
Yeah.
And it was just a
linear structure.
Yeah, very clean.
Mostly linear structure.
Yeah, very clean, well put together film. And
all the scenes had room to breathe. Like, this really was a love letter to 60s LA, and he didn't rush through any of it. I mean, it's a 2 hours 45-minute movie, and he lets, if they're driving down the street, you get a chance to enjoy the visuals. If they're walking somewhere, you get a chance to, as I said, he lets the scenes breathe.
You felt like you were there.
Yeah.
Like you felt like you were there. For somebody that didn't grow up in that era, I mean, I was like, this was what it was like.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just...
all the details, technology, cereals, food, I'm sure the background signs and lighting at the different restaurants, they did an amazing job.
Yeah,
set design, everything.
It was fantastic.
Oh, and another thing, this is so much about this movie. I loved how they recreated, because one of the characters is a Hollywood action star, Leonardo DiCaprio's character. It's like a Western star in the movie, fictional Western star. And they show him throughout the movie doing like different parts from different previous movies from different type of eras in Hollywood, like where you can just tell the film was different, the screen was different. You're like, oh, that looks like that was a movie from 1952, like shot in that way, but it has Leonardo DiCaprio in it.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. Like, there's just all those little touches. I'm like really, really impressed.
And I was really impressed with character development, which I know is saying something when you go with a Quentin Tarantino film, because he's so good at character development.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of dialogue. So, never in a Quentin Tarantino film do I feel like you don't relate or know your characters. I mean, all of them, not just one or two.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, I think it was just above and beyond. I mean, just the little details, like, whenever Sharon Tate goes to the movie theater, and she's talking to the lady at the theater, and she's like, well, I'm actually in this movie. It's those little details that help show what kind of person she was, or what kind of people all these characters are.
I was impressed that, like, somebody that was in a Hollywood movie wasn't acting stuck up about the fact she was in it. She was I just like to go see it. I mean, it was like very humble. It was very...
Well, it's also a period flick, so it's a sign of the times. I actually was telling my wife after I watched it how it's interesting that in that time period, people could walk around and they didn't have to have 10 bodyguards with them, it was just a different time. Even when you look at sports and stuff, like Muhammad Ali back in the day, he jogged through the streets and the fans would run up and he'd sign autographs and stuff. You wouldn't see that today.
Right.
But I mean, it was put together well, and just it was that slow, steady build.
It gives you the major suspense right there. It's about the middle where Brad Pitt's character visits the Manson family ranch, and you just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know.
Well, let's just take a minute and kind of tell everybody what happens.
Yes,
spoilers. So spoilers coming up. So the movie starts out that, like Simon says, it's an actor who has predominantly done Western films. He was really famous for a particular series, and he has a stunt double who does all his stunts and is also a good friend of his.
So Leo DiCaprio is the main actor character, and then the stunt double
is Brad Pitt. And so at one point he decides he wants to go off and do big movies, so he's responsible for this major series getting shut down, and it hurts his career because he doesn't hit it off as big in the movies as he was hoping. And so you come into the story with this actor who is struggling with...
He's on the down end of his career, at least what it feels like is the down slope of a career.
And it's kind of cool because, I mean, I talked to you a little bit about this before we started filming, but the thing I liked about this character is from previews and things, I kind of thought he was going to be like this just stuck up kind of asshole type. And really, he wasn't. He's very focused on his career. He wants to be successful. That's really it. The character just really wants to be successful, and he feels like he's failing. And, so the movie progresses, and he's still trying to help get Brad Pitt work.
Yeah, and pause on that for a second. Leonardo DiCaprio's Dalton, Rick Dalton.
Yeah, Rick Dalton.
His acting on this is amazing because he goes through the highs. You see the highs and lows with him in a very short amount of time, and it's all very convincing and believable.
Yes.
I mean, you see him going alcoholic, hangover, mad at himself, stressed, concentrating. You see all these different facets. You see a very, very layered
real
character.
emotion, like when he's sitting in the chair with the little girl, and he's telling her what the book is about, but really he's telling her.
And it also mirrors his story.
Mirrors his story, and he breaks down. I mean, just phenomenal. If Leonardo DiCaprio doesn't get at least nominated for something for this film, I will be shocked. I'll be shocked.
Should be well deserved.
Yeah.
And now it's not taking anything away from Brad Pitt's character, who we'll start talking about in a second.
Not.
But Brad Pitt's character is more of very well acted. Was more of a consistent tone throughout the movie.
Yeah,
for the most part,
because he was who he was, which that was his character. He was like this steady, solid guy, and he was kind of the rock that allowed Leonardo DiCaprio to survive in this world. I mean, he's was there for him.
Former stunt double who basically became his body man for the most part.
Yeah, but as the movie progresses, Leonardo DiCaprio has gotten a part in a Western, and he's playing the heavy, and he's really struggling with it because he's so used to being the leading man and being the good guy, and Brad Pitt is doing his character isn't doing the stunts for that movie.
No, he's just basically repairing stuff at
his home and
house.
Doing things for Leo's character, and he throughout the film, because we talk about how it breathes so well, several times he's seen the same girl in Hollywood.
1969, hippies are everywhere.
Yeah, and it really kind of shows that, and he finally stops and talks to this girl because she's flirting with him every time he sees her, and she asks him if he'll take her out to where she's staying, which just happens to be Spawn Ranch. And he was kind of surprised by this because he had worked on Spawn Ranch because that's where they had filmed.
It was a previous shooting location.
Yeah, for the series that they had filmed back in the past. And so he takes her there, and you feel as if it's just in fun, but you realize very quickly that he feels like from the very beginning he thought something was up.
Yeah, you realize he knows something is up because, he shows up and the place is, crawling with hippies basically that are squatting in a kind of a commune squatter community.
Yeah.
And this film obviously well enough that you feel at ease there anyway, and you feel the fact that he is very at ease, but he's also confident of character. He's able to navigate it, and also he talks about how he knows the owner of that ranch, so he has to see them, and the stress and suspense keeps building until he does talk to the guy, and you kind of find out that he's being manipulated by all these people. Also, I still, even though I knew she was in it, did not recognize Dakota Fanning.
Yeah,
as Squeaky.
Yeah,
that was amazing on it's makeup or something. It was amazing because I just did not recognize her. Anyway, he gets out of the ranch, and the suspense moment's kind of resolved. But for anyone that obviously knows history or is somewhat familiar with the whole thing, this is the Manson family.
Yeah,
Charles Manson.
And in that Spawn Ranch where they actually had stayed, and where everything kind of coalesced, and that character goes in, and it is.
They never show him.
You really feel like that something bad is going to happen, and then it kind of doesn't. And I love the scene though when he's leaving, because they're all mad at him because they realize he knows something's up, and they're like, you just need to leave. And he was going to, and then they flattened his tire, and he's like, that's my boss's car.
Rather than just drive on it anyway or change it himself, he makes one of the hippie that
flattened it,
do it by force.
By force, and that was a great scene. And I think it goes.
And that gives you a little bit of the release of the stress that built up. It just gives you a little release. Just a little,
and it goes again to build on that character, because here's a guy who was able to navigate that situation. It was so suspenseful, and you're like, there's so many more of them than him, but he was confident, and he held himself in a way that you felt like he was certain certain he could take care of himself.
Which plays off later when he's in an even more extreme situation.
Yeah.
You're like, this guy's got it.
Yeah, and you're like, he's got it.
But meanwhile, they hadn't shown that, and been like, how does this guy handle that kind of thing? Without seeing that build up.
Yeah, because he just, I mean, he's he's a stunt man, and he can handle himself.
Yeah.
So
may or may not have killed somebody before.
From there, it continues. The movie just builds on these two characters, and Leonardo's character
ends up going to doing spaghetti westerns in
Italy for a little while.
And then it kind of jumps ahead 6 months later to the night of, if you know history, the Tate murders by the Manson family. Pausing there for a second, they show Sharon Tate many times in the movies being the next door neighbor of Rick Dalton.
Yeah.
And she's portrayed by Margot Robbie.
Yes.
Very, very well. Very friendly.
Fantastic job,
charismatic.
by the way.
And there's one scene where it spends a lot of time on her going to a movie theater to watch her own movie just so she can, I guess, see the audience reactions to her in the movie, which she just gets so much joy from.
Well, and also, if you think about it, I mean, I've read a lot of actors don't actually watch their films. They don't like seeing themselves on the big screen. So, I mean, I know that there's the big red carpet and this, that, and they all go and they watch the film, but a lot of actors really don't like watching themselves, and I feel like that's kind of one of those things, too. She probably had never seen the film, and she kind of wanted to see it.
Yeah, and just kind of be in there and hear kind of the reactions and stuff, which is a very nice little scene. I'm wondering how much of that was because he had an excellent actress playing the part. He could have just pushed that whole character still dealt with it, but put the whole character to the side and been like, oh, by the way, this is the neighbors, and then not really, it doesn't even matter until the end.
Yeah.
But he gave that, some more room to breathe.
Yeah, and it just really worked out well.
Mm-hmm.
And so he comes up to the scene at the end where the murders are supposed to take place, and this is where Quentin Tarantino does what he does in the way that he does it. It's really quite amazing.
Takes an Inglourious Basterds turn where you're like, huh.
Yeah, where he takes history, he takes bits of history, and he rewrites it in a way in which you're like, wouldn't it have been better if it happened this way?
Yeah. I like he can kind of give a posthumous kind of finger to Charles Manson by undoing some of the legacy just by giving us a nicer ending, even if fiction.
Yeah, and that's the thing I think that's so I've heard some people say some negative things in the media or whatever, but I think most of it's been positive. But I don't look at there being any kind of negative this, because like you said, it's a way of taking something that was really bad and, like you said, even if it's fictional, putting a nice spin on it and giving that final farewell in the best way you can to good people that something really bad happened to, and taking the people that caused all that horrible, those horrible things, and just basically giving them the finger and saying, we're not going to let, the bad things that you guys did affect us. We're going to move forward. And I mean, I think that the movie did that extremely well. Once again, like Glorious Bastards was great. This film, a part of the movie, you were in the theater too, a lot of people, there's a point where the laughter almost just does not stop.
Yeah, the final action scene, I'm not going to get spoiled, just seem like punch by punch or anything, but yeah, the Manson family that goes on the murder spree, instead of going to the Sharon Tate's house like they originally did in real life, they went next door to the Dalton's house and intercept Brad Pitt, Leonardo DiCaprio, and others.
And it does not go well for them.
And a hilarious and very well done final action scene.
Yeah.
Now, some of the, as far as does it offend people now? First of all, there's only really, I guess, two main groups of people that are still around that it directly affects. One is, people that are surviving members of the Manson family. I don't care.
Yeah.
Actually, I think Squeaky wasn't even really involved in the actual one. She's actually since been paroled and is, I guess, out now. But she wasn't actually involved directly in the Tate murder. She didn't go on the street and went to the house like they showed her in here. From what I understand, if I'm wrong, let me know. But I remember reading about it, and I was like, okay, they changed it up a little bit just to have some, I guess, more recognizable faces be part of the crew. The second person is Roman Polanski, director, in exile in Europe for convicted rape here. So once again, I'm not overly concerned.
But yeah, so the movie, again, Quentin Tarantino, I mean, the way it closes off, fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Just another excellent film put together by him, and I mean, I've loved I've loved all his films. I mean, some more than others, but all done extremely well. But I would go as far as say, of all of the movies I've seen, I enjoyed this one the most. I mean, it's not as action packed as some. It's a little bit different, but also the same.
Yeah.
But I mean, I really, when you're sitting through the movie, as long as it is, it doesn't feel like it. It's like it's over already.
Yeah. Well, just going back in the last few Quentin Tarantino movies, I mean, if we're going to just talk about him for a second. Hateful Eight, I enjoyed it. Yes. I haven't gone back and rewatched it, but I enjoyed it when it came out. Just I haven't gotten the urge to see it again anytime soon. I will at some point, but it's good, but I'm good for now. Inglourious Bastards, I watched it a few different times, and there are certain scenes and exchanges in the movie that I love. But as far as the movie as a whole, it's like, it was cool. Kill Bill, especially Kill Bill Part 1, that's a guilty pleasure for me. I'll put that one on just for fun. Just because it's the over-the-top action and the music. It's just a fun movie. And then Pulp Fiction is one that, every once in a while I'll just go back to, just like an old friend kind of thing, just because it's just so classic.
One that I've seen several times, people don't talk about as often, is Jackie Brown. That movie was a lot of fun. Most of his films I've seen on several occasions, and then there's also films that weren't on a list of 8 that he had his or 9 that he had his.
Well, he didn't direct or create, but he had a hand in that production or whatever. Like and, 4 Rooms and some others.
And and most of those films I freaking love too. So I mean, but out of all of it. Yeah, but this one was one that I will watch several times. It's a great film. I'm looking forward to actually going back and seeing it in the theater a second time. Probably take the wife with me this time. So
yeah, I don't know if my wife would enjoy it or not, but definitely not the kids for a few more years. But probably be a number of years before he has another one out. But until then, this should satisfy Tarantino fans for quite a bit, and we'll look forward to award season to see what it gets. I mean, I don't know if Margot Robbie was had enough of a role to get a supporting actress on that one. A lot of her was just sitting there in the theater. Not to diminish from that at all. I just don't know if it's enough to be up against a full slate of best actress or supporting actresses. Now the interesting on the DiCaprio and Pitt is, are they both leading or are they one of them supporting?
I would say they'd say Leonardo DiCaprio's character is the lead, but that
might be splitting hairs at some point. But they both could get something, but I think DiCaprio is more deserving. And this movie should also be up for a ton. I think it should be up for a ton of more technical awards, like costume design, set design, cinematography. Yeah, it was definitely worthwhile.
And when you talk about other films, that Quentin Tarantino might or might not be doing, we have to also touch on the fact that just maybe we might get a Star Trek film.
That may be the 10th.
Probably not. Probably not. I mean, I'm crossing my fingers. That's a Star Trek film I would go and see 10 times.
It's like, all right, Kirk, sit in the chair. I'll let the scene breathe. Cue the music.
Well, thanks, guys, for tuning in to Fan Talk. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe. I'm David.
I'm Simon. Till next time.